Good evening, boys and girls. It's Tuesday, which means it's time for a little transfer torture talk. Truths, myths, facts, fiction. What do you believe? This is your show. Let's roll. Good evening, boys and girls, and welcome to another live edition of the Highbury Squad. And joining me this evening is one of my favourites, Lucy. Welcome back to the show. How are you doing? How is your summer going?
It's going well. Nice weather. Just hoping to hear some more news, really. But how are you? Hope you've been good.
Been good. Been surviving. Took a couple of days off here and there after a very long season, so that was really nice. And now just enjoying the Euros. I know you only caught a little bit of the game, but my goodness, France looks so good.
Honestly, they've had 2 disallowed goals, right? And some crazy decisions. I saw a little bit of it. It's been a bit of a hectic day, but just watching that level of football it's beautiful to see. But a shame for France, obviously.
It is. But I think this might be the first tournament in years, and the squaddies, good evening to each and every one of you in the house this evening. Maybe they can correct me, but I think, Lucy, that this might be the first tournament in a long time that there hasn't been an Arsenal player in this squad.
Well, it's hardly surprising, really, when the quality of some of the players and the attitude and mentality of some of the players. I mean, obviously, you've got Xhaka that's been playing in for Switzerland. You've got Tierney that's been phenomenal for Scotland, apart from the injury side of things, which is a shame. You never like to see that sort of thing. But realistically, we're riding on the coattails of Saka, who's been like a highlight so far for England.
Yeah, it's, once the tournament starts and you see the first round of games and stuff, you can really tell, the teams that just know and have the experience. I think someone said there was an insane stat that there were only 3 players in that France v Germany game that hadn't won the Champions League or the World Cup, which is completely insane. And then when you kind of look at England, our country, and you see a France play, you see even a Portugal play. Portugal are really tricky. They're a bit of I say dirty with the right attitude in saying dirty. They just know how to manipulate situations, and even when they don't have the ball, win the ball back by a little bit of gamesmanship as well. So before we kick off with a little bit of Arsenal talk, what's your take? Do you think England have a shot?
I'm not a big England hype star, unfortunately. I've never really enjoyed watching them play. It's nice to see a few younger players being brought in. Obviously, you've got Mason Mount, you've got Phil Foden that have been amazing in the Premier League this season. It's looking a lot more sort of viable that we might go a bit further. But to be honest, I prefer watching teams like France, Germany, Portugal play just because of the style of football is a lot more interesting to watch.
Yeah, no,
to be honest.
I completely agree with you. And I think sometimes we've got the type of managers that like to just play big names. Like Harry Kane didn't have a good name. Granted, he didn't get a lot of service in that Croatia game, but he'll start no matter what. Southgate will never, drop him. And he's trying to fit his square pegs in round holes with right backs playing left backs. And as you go through the tournament, as we've seen with our own team, trying to squeeze square pegs in round holes like we did in the Europa League semi-final, it just catches up with you eventually, doesn't it? So anyway, let's move on here a little bit, Lucy. I'm loving that you're rocking the shirt tonight. There's a little bit of feedback on your... let me know, guys, if you can hear it. There might be a little... You've got your headphones on. I think, let's just... We'll monitor it. How about that? Good evening to everyone in chat again. You are listening to the Highbury Squad with myself, Sophie, and Lucy. Lucy's going to be joining us a lot more next season as well, so you'll get to see a little bit more of her. We're looking forward to introducing some new voices to the squad, and we're really excited about our Fan Ambassador series, and Lucy's going to be part of that. So, the transfer season. I used to love it, Lucy. There was one window, there was one period of time. It was like bada bing, bada boom. Now it's like, how sometimes they make a film and then they want a sequel and then they want another sequel. But we all know that you don't need 10 Saw movies. You only need maybe the first 3. And the transfer season just goes into this long, drawn out. You feel like you've read you've read the book before, watched the movie, drank from the mug, worn the T-shirt, and especially for Arsenal fans. Before we get stuck into what you think and what you think of the truths versus the myths, and we'll get the squaddies vibe on that too. Are you a lover or a loather of the transfer windows?
Using your analogy, to me, for Arsenal fans anyway, the transfer window, whether it's January or summer, always feels like the trailer for a film where you're made all these big promises, all these big grandiose statements of how we're going to go out and buy all these mad and magnificent players. And then at the end of it, we've got a week left to go, 2 weeks left to go. We sell players, we sell a ton of players. The money is there to be spent. It's just either it's not spent wisely or it's not spent at all when it goes into certain people's pockets, shall we say. To me, it's just all of this build up. You get leaks, but of course you're always going to have leaks in football, which people want to get hyped, people want to get excited, but we're always let down, in my opinion. There hasn't been a season in the past 5 years where maybe Pepe, Aubameyang, like it's big names, but do we ever really see anyone that we really need to fit into, gel into the team? I don't really think we have in the past 5 or 6 years, to be honest.
It's a brilliant point. And, for me, it's exactly that. We go through this now for the last 5 or 6 seasons. We're linked with every single player that's available. And I'm going to read a load of them off, and I'd love to know your thoughts and also the squaddies as well. But the point is that how much of that is going to be realistic? And, we've always been a one season, one transfer window marquee signing kind of club. Chelsea will go out and get 3 or 4. City will do the same. Even Liverpool now are doing the same. Manchester United, Tottenham did it last season, albeit they didn't end up qualifying for the Champions League. But now even teams around us like Everton, Wolves, Aston Villa, Leicester City, who have surpassed us in the transfer stakes for sure in the Premier League and have been able to qualify for Europe 2 seasons in a row. Yes, they kind of lost their mojo again at the end, but still Leicester is a team, won the FA Cup, and they're only going to, gain strength from there, Lucy. And in the season where we just signed Santi, we win an FA Cup and then they drop us, the bomb of this team's really good. This team can actually compete for the Premier League. We've got all the parts. We're just missing a couple bits. And then you get a couple bits here and there, but then you get a Santi, and then you get an Alexis, and then you get an Ozil, but you're only buying one of those in the window. Yeah, and then absolutely. 3 seasons have passed, and we've done nothing to support those players and build on that. And when you think about those things, like you said, imagine the type of team that we could have been had we duplicated those signings in other roles in the side.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the point, is that we're being left behind. We've come out of this era where Arsene Wenger took us 10 years into the future, but now we're 10 years behind everybody else because our club refuses to invest in the players that we need in order to keep competing with these clubs. We've got teams like you say, Leicester, Everton, Tottenham, who are surpassing us that we would have never thought. If you said 10 years ago that Tottenham would be finishing above us every season, I'd have told you there's no way. But here we are, like with these lackluster players, and we've got an owner and a board that refuses to invest the money that needs to be invested. Unfortunately, it's just we're being left behind. That's the simple truth of it.
The other thing too, Lucy, I mentioned that there aren't any Arsenal players in this French squad, and Saka is the only representative even in the England squad, and you got Xhaka playing for Switzerland. When you look around and then you see the likes of Pogba play the way he does for France, it's a perfect example because people are going off in chat about Pogba a little bit. And I agree. When you see a player play with better players or like-minded players, it shows you the quality of the player. Like Pogba just didn't become rubbish when he left Juventus and went to Manchester United. Yes, he's had his struggles and he's been out of form, but you can just see the difference when players are playing with quality players around them. And I think that's been the key. Like even this season, Xhaka, who has been terrible and has made terrible mistakes, and I've stood up for him for sure, but he improved when he was playing with Partey.
Absolutely.
Even Holding improved when he was playing with Pablo Mari, and Pablo Mari is he's no one to write home about as a world-class player, but he's just a very sound quality player who knows how to play football. That's what I want to see.
This is the thing. It's not just a one-player fix. It's all very well going and signing a £72 million player and thinking, oh, good, we've got this player now, he's going to perform. When you're surrounded by, you're being played off by Hector Bellerin or Granit Xhaka, or it's just, what do you expect these players to be able to do? They're not miracle workers. You need the support behind you in order to drive forward. Mm-hmm. So that's why we've seen players like Aubameyang and Pepe and like Ødegaard had his bad games. They kind of fell off because you can see the frustration. And players like Tierney, who make these 60, 70-yard runs to the box, and you're seeing them, the crosses going in, and the quality's not on the end of them. Mm-hmm. It's not just one player fixes. It's a team game at the end of the day. You can't just. The whole thing needs to be scrapped and rehauled, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, well, I had back and forth with Kev and Ollie Wilson, who was on our show a couple of nights ago, Lucy. We were talking about, Kev brought up the fact that we would have qualified for the Champions League if it wasn't for Xhaka's mistake at the end of that season. And, my argument is, yes, that's the case, but it's a 38-game season. And I think the problem for Arsenal Football Club over the years, our Achilles heel has been we cannot be consistent for 38 games in the Premier League. We're a very good cup team. We can focus on that one game, knockout phase, what's here and now in front of you. But in terms of being consistent, staying healthy, mentally engaged, and being able to just start the season with the same mentality from, from August to May, we just have not been able to do that. So look, let's get stuck into this a little bit. Okay. I would love to know what players you would like to see come to the club. And also I'd love to know about the outgoings. Of course, there's talk about Xhaka going to Roma and Bellerin going back to Spain. There's the question mark about Willock, right now, and this Newcastle supposed 30 million interest. We still don't know really what's happening. I think Lacazette's going to stay now. So we don't know what's really happening with Saliba. It seems like there's mixed messages about Saliba and what's really going on there. And when you look at the fact that we're trying to sign Ben White as well, it's really interesting, Lucy. So I'm going to give you a list of players and squaddies and anyone in chat. Please feel free to jump in and let me know if I've missed anyone. But so far, these are the players that we've been linked with. Buendia, Ødegaard I'm including because he's a player that was loaned to us, and I think there was every interest in wanting him to stay, but there was no way that Real Madrid were going to allow that to happen. Fekir, who's back into the picture, Ben White, who's this newbie shiny toy, Ryan Bertrand, Lokonga, Maddison, Bissouma, Berge, Ruben Neves, of course, Locatelli, who I find really interesting, and Oliver Wilson on our show the other night was talking about him. Has that Pirlo-esque type game about him. Anana, the goalkeeper. Yep. And I don't know if I'm sure I've missed someone, but that's a lot of names. But there's two positions, Lucy, where I think are the most interesting, right? It's that attacking midfielder, that creative position, and then also, of course, that defensive midfield position and that support that we need for Thomas Partey. Now, clearly, Elneny's going to stay at the club, but if Xhaka's going to go and Ceballos has already gone back to Real Madrid, we're going to need cover. Want your take on the player that you've seen that you like, and then also Bissouma is the one that Arsenal fans have always wanted. I think my question to everyone in chat tonight as well is, does he really complement Thomas Partey? I've been reading a lot about the two of them. Partey can be a box-to-box midfielder too, and we've seen him play that way. Bissouma is a versatile player. Are they too like-minded? What's your take in terms of that midfield position and who's going to be the best partner for Thomas Partey for next season? What's realistic too?
So, speaking like realistically, I think Bissouma would be the perfect fit, if I'm honest. Partey, he's not being played for what he's intended for. He's not being played. We played him in a 4-1-4-1 formation or something along those lines, and he was completely left by himself. He's been given too big a job, and he's a holding midfield player. That's what he's good at. He's good at holding up the ball. He's a big, tanky player. So he needs something creative and a midfielder that's going to drive forward with the ball. Because one thing that myself and a lot of Arsenal fans, I feel like we're sick of watching this back and forth horseshoe style of football. It's boring to watch, and it doesn't create any inspiring sort of football, any sort of inspiring chances. Bissouma, when he played against us in that last game of the season, he was constantly driving forward with the ball. Not only that, he's an aerial player too. He's good with his defensively. He can hold up the ball, which isn't necessarily the be all and end all because, like I said, we have Partey. But he's available. He shares an agent with Pepe. He loves the club, and he played with Gabriel at Lille. Obviously, like there's still contact there. So I feel like he would be not only the most likely, but also the best fit to sort of go alongside Partey and create that sort of partnership.
Yeah, and if you believe what you read and the images that we see on social media too, he desperately wants to join the club as well. I'm going to throw in a few of these comments from the chat as well. Let's see here. Bissouma would be great, might work well with Partey. El Neni staying, that's a great example of why we're going nowhere. Look, Woody Wood, I'm telling you right now, I've been saying this, the Chambers, the El Nenis, the Xhakas, as much as I've defended him, it's time for wholesale changes. You know, I think Arsenal fans would rather suffer another year and start rebuilding a team that is showing progress and showing, moving forward. And even if that's with Arteta or not, come October, November, if he's in the same situation, but even if it's a new team, I think we're all up for that because we just keep seeing the same show every single year. Chait says, Bissouma has a good long-range ball, dynamic player, strong tackler, can win the ball back with progress. I think we've seen it. And this is why I was asking, Raul, they're two like-minded players. We need a creative player. And yeah, we're going to get to that. And I'd love to know what you guys think. Bissouma and Partey is basically Vieira and Gilberto light. Even if they're Vieira and Gilberto light.
That's a heavy statement. That is a very heavy statement. I like the idea behind. I would love it if that came to fruition.
My goodness,
amazing. But,
This is Ryan's take, Lucy. Neves, Bissouma, Partey makes us incredibly difficult to play against. Part of our problem is being dominated in midfield every week. Possession is one of what we do off the ball. We're terrible.
Yeah. We don't press hard enough at all. Our players look terrified of pressing every single week. They just look scared.
Yep.
It's embarrassing to watch.
Exactly, which is why one of the players I've mentioned I think could be really interesting. Demsek says, my biggest concern is if we have Bissouma and Partey midfield, when the Africa Cup of Nations comes up, we'll have El Neni. And this is going to be something that we have to deal with. And we've dealt with it in the past, and a club like Arsenal needs to have the depth and the quality to be able to combat these kinds of problems. I'm going to come to him, Lokonga. I don't know if you've seen much of him, Lucy, and I don't profess to know him inside and out. He's a player that's really emerged. He got his chance in the 2019-20 season, but in this 2020-21 season, he's really emerged. Vincent Kompany and Anderlecht has made him captain too. He's able to play that defensive midfielder role. He's also been known to play box to box. He's 21 years old. What I like about him, Lucy, is that Vincent Kompany, who's probably one of the best captains we've seen in the Premier League, identifies him as someone who has that leadership quality. And I think when we're signing new players, we definitely need to be looking at talent, of course, but can they be leaders because Arsenal lack them? Absolutely. What do you know of this signing? Is this a play that you've just learned about in this window?
So what I did hear was that he was recommended to Arsenal by Thierry Henry, which, as we know, is linked to the whole Danny Ek takeover, which is really interesting to me. Obviously, nothing like that has come to fruition with Danny Ek so far, but the fact that Thierry Henry is playing a part in a potential signing could be quite a positive sign. I haven't watched him play necessarily. I would like to see more of him just based on the recommendation of Vincent Kompany and Thierry Henry, like both really big players, like reputation-wise. But that is a big role to fill. Defensive midfielder is a big role. And we need a big sort of influence in the middle of the pitch to sort of turn that sort of scaredy cat mentality around. The back passing is just frustrating and being scared to sort of go forward I think what Arsenal like about him, and here's what worries me about the transfer window, Lucy, and everyone in chat. What worries me is
he's a cheaper version of X, Y, or Z. He's around 13.5 million, which for a player in that position in modern day football to come in, you would expect, though, if he's going to come in, he would be the starting player to partner Thomas Partey. But what worries me is, why did we lose out on Buendia? Was it because of 5 million? Was it because of add-ons? Like, I know that some people think, oh, don't worry about it. Maybe we didn't want Buendia. Maybe Arteta didn't want him. But we were in for him and we made a bid for him. We lost that deal. Whether people want to hear that or not, the truth is that we did. And are we once again doing the plus £1 thing? A lot of people thought that was Wenger's arrogance. What's your take on that?
It's always been an issue of either money or lack of ambition. There's been a lot of stories come about in the past few years where players have asked, okay, who else are you signing? Where is this club going? And we haven't been able to give them an answer. But money, obviously, now is just a huge part of the game in general. And unfortunately, we've inherited these owners that do not want to spend it. And I think as far as the Wenger situation goes, he has said he needed to balance the books. He sold players that we didn't want to sell in order to keep it all spicy up top and to keep everyone happy. But I think, it's a case of both arrogance and money, just not wanting to spend it, not just from like Wenger, but from everyone involved. And it's difficult as well to sign these big names. You've got to give a little bit of credit to Edu in the long run, realistically, because getting these up and coming names out of the club is difficult. So sometimes I feel like they do go for the easier signings, especially the younger players they rely a lot on. And sometimes it's easier just to go for the no names and hope it works out in the long run, which is unfortunate. But
I mean, we've signed some good no names in the past, but that was in the long past. But you're right in the sense that I'm not of the ilk that everyone has to be a household name to sign them.
Absolutely.
If Arteta wants to play 4-3-3, find the right players that fit your system. We saw Leicester City win a Premier League title against all of the top boys, because Ranieri had a plan, he had a system. He was known as the Tinker Man, but those players bought into what the manager wanted to do. And I think, as critical as I've been of Arteta, and I say I give him, and I've always given him till October, once he finds his players, Lucy, once he finds the talent that will play the way he wants, be disciples to his game, play the game in his image, develop his character, his personality, then we'll know what kind of manager he really is. Because thus far in the Premier League, he's been a very poor manager and he's made very bad decisions. But once he gets his own team, no matter how he does that, he's got to be able to turn it around. And if he doesn't, and we're still in the same position by, October, you've got to start asking some serious questions about his capabilities to manage a club like the Arsenal.
Absolutely. And as much as I do value the potential in players, obviously, playing devil's advocate a little bit, it is important to have some experience on the pitch as well to sort of guide these younger players, which is why I'm so adamant that I want to keep Lacazette. He's such a big role model to the younger boys, and I know a lot of people aren't really his biggest fan, but on and off the pitch, he's an influence, and it's important to have those more prominent, prolific figures who have done their time and have sort of worked their way up, as opposed to these younger players who, they want to play and you can see the passion in their game, but sometimes they haven't already got the knowledge and experience that we need to drive us forward personally.
And I think that's a systemic thing across multiple industries and, verticals in the business world, if you like, Lucy. People want instant gratification. And it's just the way the world works. Everything now, before you had to take photos, edit them, go develop them. Now you can take a photo, cut and paste, use filters, and boom, you've got a picture out there to the world within 30 seconds. And in sports now, when everyone has evolved and the teams around us have just elevated themselves, and now our competitors are Aston Villa and Southampton and Wolves and Everton, our fans, and I understand why, we come from a tradition and a culture and a DNA that is a winning club. Whether it's been 17 years since we won the Premier League, we've still dominated the FA Cup. We've won 4 of them in 6 years. Teams would kill for that. But the instant gratification and that need and want and desire to be competing in the Premier League, it's now 17 years in the making, right?
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
that's where the rubber meets the road. And I understand the frustration and having that lack of patience, because modern day sports isn't necessarily about building for the future. It's about, what can you do for me now? How do we win today? Because the money at stake is just too much. And we've seen the consequences of that, us missing out on Champions League football. Now we have no European football. So this is the season where
Yeah,
the
the
owners are,
decline is happening,
right?
exactly, and we
And,
failed to compete when to compete for the big players when we were in a good position. Now we're in even worse position. It's even harder to secure the players that we need because we're not in Europe anymore.
okay, so I want to go back to your point, because you made a
Mm.
fantastic point about experience, right? Now, for me, in today's world, experience doesn't necessarily correlate to age. I think there are a lot of young people who have great experience in a multitude of workplaces, right? Whether you're in an office, whether you're a marketer, you're a social media person, you could be 22, 23 and be just as talented, and have as much as experience of knowing your craft as someone who's older than you, right? So when you talk about experience, for me, I would love a couple of Premier League players to come
Mm.
to the club. So as long as they're not Chelsea rejects,
Hmm.
right?
Well,
That
that is a big ask for our club, apparently, isn't it?
It
Yeah.
is. It's a very big ask. But let me ask you
Decisions.
about the name we've been linked with now, because this is one of the names when we talk about truths, myths, facts, fiction. To me, this is total fiction. I don't know where this is being manufactured. And maybe Maddison does want to leave Leicester. Maybe he wants to strike while the iron's hot. Maybe the club want to cash in.
Mm.
But I can't see, there's rumors about Tillemans maybe going to Liverpool. I cannot see
Mm.
Leicester giving their farm away, in one transfer window. He's going to be around 50 million. He's homegrown. He's a British player, which we know the market value is super high for that. He's got this cockiness that's confident, cocky. I don't know if it borders
I
on
don't
too.
mind that though. I really don't, because I would rather you be cocky if you're good, if you're doing the work that you're set out to do. I'm sick of these players coming to our club that, oh, but they're so humble and they're Arsenal boys, so let them come. I don't care. I want winning players. I want players with ambition that want to win. Like Tierney, you see him in the commentary that you can hear him screaming like,
Mm-hmm.
"Come on, we've got to do better. Do this, drive forward." You can hear him. I want players like that. I don't want these wimpy, like, no, I don't. I'm not interested. Not
Yeah.
interested at all.
Kieran Tierney is the perfect example of a leader who's not wearing the
Mm.
armband, but he's just born that way. That's his character. That's his personality. Come on, guys. The shithousery with the opposing player. I can't remember what game it was now, but he was giving him it, but in such a smart way where he wasn't getting caught out. Referee can't hear him. It's that usual. We need players like that. We need more of that. Our midfield needs that. Vieira was the best at that. I mean, the
Yeah.
shithousery Vieira had, even Dennis Bergkamp was full of shithousery, but they were also really, really good players. So I think, with Maddison, he's the one that's piqued my interest quite a bit here.
Okay.
He's missed out on the England team because of injury. I think he still had a bit of work to do, even if he wasn't injured. Not sure he would have made that team this year. He's got a point to prove. What worries me, he's hot and cold. He can go for
Yeah.
a few matches and be amazing and do these great interviews that are super engaging, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!" He's like, "Whoa, so creative! One of the best, attacking midfielders we've seen to play in English football." And then it's like, calm down, everyone. He's also got a few injuries in him. What's your take from what you've seen at Leicester, and if you think he fits at Arsenal?
Well, inconsistency is a problem that we've suffered at Arsenal, like especially the past season. We're so hot and cold, but that's a problem that you can realistically have with any player, especially someone injury prone who's not necessarily getting picked every week. But that's a risk you take with an injury prone player, and we've had that problem in the past, which is the main reason why I would be reluctant. But he's another player with great potential that, if we're going to focus on building a team around these youngsters, then I would say he would be a good pick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily enthralled by him, but is he better than some of the players that we're working with at the moment? Absolutely. And he's got that ambition in him. He's got the confidence to go ahead. And he knows the Premier League as well. He's been playing in the Premier League, which is a huge bonus.
Yeah. I think someone just wrote, and I've lost it now, but he said, Arteta doesn't like cocky. And we've seen that. And there's a couple of people that want to know what you think about Guendouzi and if you think he's a player that we should keep and if you dug him and if you think he's got that talent. And if Arteta, Lucy, can manage characters or manage bad boys, doesn't seem like he can.
I don't think Guendouzi was necessarily a cockiness problem. I think it was a discipline problem. He didn't know when to shut his mouth, and you can be cocky and you can be confident, but you need to know when to shut your mouth, basically. I feel like there was a lot more that went on with Guendouzi behind the scenes that we'll obviously never know about, like so many things. I still don't think he was good enough, though, if I'm honest. He was a good little player, and I hope to see him do well. I don't think he's the worst we've had, but I also think, like, at this point, I don't want to be settling, and we settle with so many players now, and you hear it, El Neni, Chambers, like Bellerin, I don't want to keep settling for these sort of okay players, and if he can't handle certain individuals, then that's a problem that needs to be dealt with his higher ups on his managing capability. But that's, again, something that we never really see or hear about. So
yeah. No, it's a great point because he's green, right? He's a rookie. It's like a YTS. He's on work experience, and if he hasn't learned from this season in the Premier League, then there's no hope. I mean, he had to have learned.
And it's interesting. I did see a comment, someone saying, "Stop blaming the owners." I'm not going to blame the manager, which is debatable because some of these players, like I said, have seen off 3 managers now. So who am I to blame apart from these consistent owners who they are the one deciding on Arteta. They've decided on this inexperienced manager to take us forward. That was their decision. So they're the ones making the decisions, not Arteta at the end of the day. The buck stops with them. So who else do you want me to blame realistically?
Yeah, I think also, though, because the time of which the owners have actually had full control of the club, right? And also, at the end of the day, when you look at what we've spent, our ratio compared to other top teams, it's not as woeful as people think. I think the issue is it's been mismanaged and misspent. And
they lack ambition.
Right, but not all of that is on the owners. If Gazidis and Wenger bought bad players and did bad contracts. Same with Unai Emery, bringing in a Lichtsteiner or whoever. Same thing with Mikel Arteta and the Willian deal and Edu. There's definitely been some mismanagement on the management side, in addition to the fact that our owners are completely stingy when it comes to investing in the club.
Absolutely. We always go for the cheaper option, as we full well know. So
exactly. That's why I brought up the Lokonga thing, because, 13.5 million, that's pretty cheap. Okay. So Odegaard's gone. Buendia's done. Ben White. Boom. Lightning bolt.
The only issue for me is where, like you said, where does that leave Saliba? Mm-hmm. And where does that leave Maitland-Niles, who obviously, I don't think Maitland-Niles is good enough in my opinion, but do we sell him or what? We still don't know what's going on with him. I
think the problem with Maitland-Niles is he became the jack of all trades and master of none at Arsenal. He's always wanted to play in midfield. That's why he went to West Brom. He could have gone to a bunch of other clubs. In the end, it bit him in the arse because his loan deal was a disaster. Willock had a phenomenal loan deal. Mavropanos at Stuttgart had a great loan deal. Guendouzi did not. Torreira did not. Saliba did, going back to France. So some of our loan deals were a lot better than others. The issue with now, what I want to ask everyone here is, I know everyone takes the piss out of Harry Maguire, 85 million, and he's been a bit of a donkey for Man United. But in the latter half of this season, he's been getting rave reviews and in a sense has been one of the reasons why, they excelled to, second place. And also people think that they missed him in the Europa League final. England misses him, etc., etc. He was 85 million. The value for an English player, Lucy, is crazy. The money that we have to look at spending. Ben White seems to be the soup du jour, the next Harry Maguire, if you like. but with a bit more talent, I think.
Yeah.
Is it worth the punt? It's 50 million.
It's a difficult one. Because I was a big Saliba fan, if I'm honest, and I wanted to see him make a more prolific start. And when I did watch him play, like he had it, he had the drive, and I didn't really see him do a whole lot that I disagreed with. But yeah, Ben White is a very attractive option. Whether we go with that option, do we want to buy another player that's like gonna force Saliba out? Potentially, if it's gonna make sense in the long run. But Saliba, he's only 19. Obviously, we've got to look at the inexperience again and whether we want someone who's got a little bit more Premier League experience. But it's comparing two different style of players, in my opinion. Like technically, I think Saliba's better, and then as far as holding up the ball and long range, I think that Ben White's better. But
I think in this instance, you got Ben White, and he's had the experience at Brighton in the Premier League. You got Saliba, who really, now we're going into a 2-year period with him, has hardly played, not really been given a chance, and has gone back to France twice now for 2 different loan deals. I believe that what we want sometimes isn't what we get, and it's definitely not what we think will happen. Yeah, we all felt like maybe going into this season, it would be Gabriel and Saliba at the back together, forming that partnership. You know, our new formidable, back line. You got Tierney when fit, hopefully, and then a new right back. Whether that's going to be a Celik, whether that's going to be, giving it to Chambers or Cedric, whether Maitland-Niles is going to come back and own that right back position and be humbled a little bit, because he's never going to get to play midfield at Arsenal, Maitland-Niles.
If he doesn't want it, let him go. If he doesn't want it, let him go, is my opinion. Yeah. Maitland-Niles, he's asking for something, like you said, he's trying to be the master of midfield. It's not it, and you're trying to force a situation that doesn't work for you. I don't feel like he has the talent in order to be picky as far as where he plays. If your manager's telling you that you work better at right back, you've gone out at loan to play in midfield and it hasn't worked out, then you've just got to bear the brunt and sort of listen to the advice that your elders are giving you.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting one to see what happens there. Clearly, there's a lot of people started speculating about Rob Holding as well. Rob Holding just signed his new deal, last year. I think Arteta fancies Rob Holding. He's someone that can be a good squad player, won't necessarily start every single game. And I think we're looking to maybe build a more consistent backline for the future. My biggest concern in that back line isn't necessarily about who's going to come in, Lucy, and be, that pairing. But my biggest concern is Kieran Tierney going to be fit for an entire season?
Yeah, like I said, we've already had our issues in the past with injury-prone players, and we rely so heavily on him that it's a lot. And we do need someone to sort of come in and support him, or at least be as good as he is at making those runs and making those crosses into the box. But he's already had injuries, obviously playing in the Euros, and you can only push players so far, especially with the year we've had with COVID. Everything's so tightly packed together now that these players are like coming off of exhaustion, like Eriksen the other day. Like, we can only hope that he's doing all right. I think he's stable now, but you're pushing these players to the very limits at this point.
Yeah, it's definitely been a tricky time. We talked about that on last night's show. I feel for the players. Sometimes I think, we don't understand kind of what they've been through in particular in the last 16 months. Okay, when I mentioned Locatelli's name, you kind of peaked up a little bit.
Yeah, watching him the other day, I won't lie to you, I hadn't really heard a whole lot about him. I heard just before the game that Arsenal were interested, so I thought, I'll keep an eye on him, see what he's all about. And yeah, Matt, he had a few shots. He was driving the ball forward, which is what I love to see. I'm so sick of this back pass. It's boring. I know, boring Arsenal and whatnot. Fair enough. That's been our reputation in the past. It's great if it wins you games, but we're not good enough defensively to sort of to hold the ball up like that for it to be consistent, So to see something a bit different and see him running forward and creating opportunities, creating space, making the opposite team defend, it was just so refreshing to watch. I think he'd be great. He'd be a great asset to us. Yeah,
he's definitely that player we've missed. Possession is key for us, and sometimes we squander it so badly. And like you said, we're always thinking sideways, backwards. There's not that confidence to move the ball forward, because we do get plays in good spaces. But unfortunately, we've had such slow play through our midfield. It's been a bit better this season in spurts. But he presents himself as that, Andrea Pirlo-esque, number 8. And there's something very interesting to me about this player. I'm more excited about someone like him. The problem is now Locatelli's going to be 45 million pound player, and this is why I wanted to do the show tonight, because the question is, what do you believe? And I'm going to hand it over to everybody, but you have to hit the like button if you hate Tottenham first, by the way. But you guys, I've mentioned these names. Buendia, gone, right? So Ben White. By the way, remember Ryan Bertrand? No one wanted to sign him. We were linked to him as well. Lokonga, Fekir, we haven't talked about. Fekir is a lot cheaper this season than he was 2 or 3 seasons ago. Kev watched him play a lot, Lucy, in La Liga, covering the games this past season for Facebook Watch. And he thinks he'd be a superb addition. And one of the things I argued with Kev about was that Fekir's the type of player that can't really stay fit all the time. And he just kind of like went, nope, Soph. He's been fit most of the season. He's been able to overcome some of those challenges. And is it a case of him having the name, it's like players we were linked to before, Envia and, Draxler and all these players who kind of suffered from injuries. And now maybe we wanted to sign them 3 or 4 years ago versus now. I feel like Fekir is maybe one of those players. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like we do this a lot. We miss players in their prime. We do that a lot. And obviously signing players who we maybe needed 3 or 4 years earlier, who are the missing piece, and then we've sort of been told we're getting them, and then they drifts into the abyss, and then a few years later they come back and they're looking for sort of a big comeback to sort of prove themselves, and it never sort of comes about. I mean, he's got good technical ability. I haven't watched a whole lot of him play, if I'm honest, but from what I've seen, I don't have anything bad to say about him, apart from obviously the injury side of things.
Yes.
And the inconsistency with him being fit. But again, I think that's just a risk you take with these players who are playing week in and week out and training week in and week out.
Every signing is a risk. And I will say one thing, why I think missing out on European football altogether this season is really hard. We were able to still sign quality players without Champions League football. We were still able to offer them the Europa League, a ticket back into the Champions League, a path, a vision. We were able to do that and bring Lacazette in, Aubameyang, Thomas Partey, Nicola Pepe, Gabriel. All of these players we signed when we didn't have Champions League football. And now we don't have European football. So for me, half of this stuff is nonsense. I don't know what you guys believe. Let me know in chat before we start ducking out here tonight. But Locatelli's probably going to go to Juventus, like a lot of people in chat have said. Yeah. Lokonga now, what other teams are going to come in of interest? He might be the one that is doable, at this point. Ben White, you could see like a United going in for him even. And when you look at some of these players, even Calvin Phillips, some people have been mentioning him in chat. After one game at the Euros, his value's now gone up. And also, he could potentially be a replacement for Gigi Wijnaldum at Liverpool. He'd have Champions League football. He'd be playing for a team that is competing for trophies. So, Lucy, in terms of like the belief of what we want to happen versus the reality of what's going to happen, I think we need to just crank it down a notch once again.
This is why every time I hear, Arsenal are thinking of signing so-and-so, I always take it with a pinch of salt, because even when we were playing Europa League football, even when we were in the Champions League, we still failed to make the signings we needed in order to keep us at a competitive level anyway. So it's the same situation that we were talking about with the manager. Like, who can we attract that will want to come to Arsenal, who's got the ability to sort of help us turn this team, this club that's in a declining state around. That's why I feel like building around the sort of younger players is our only option at this point, because you're not going to get these big names that want to come because they want to win trophies. And realistically, I don't see us winning the league next season. I see us hopefully top 5 if we're lucky, but I don't see us competing for trophies next season. I think it's a matter of rebuilding and sort of seeking out potential in players and trying to get these younger players to a higher level. I think that's what we've got to focus on.
Completely agree. I mean, our goal is to somehow nick 4th place or at least finish 5th to get back into Europe.
Yeah.
And we're an unknown entity. We're coming off 2 really bad seasons, our worst in the Premier League. And you're right, our expectations should be lowered, and they should be lowered a little bit when it comes to signing. I would love to, I know it is shitty. I mean, I would love to sign, for example, you could sign James Maddison, Ben White and Calvin Phillips, or Calvin Phillips and Ben White, or any 2 of those. Spend 100 million and you're out, right? You're done.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we have to nickel and dime. We haven't even, who have we really sold to bring in the money yet? This is why,
this is the thing. We're even just selling Xhaka, but he's barely bringing in 12 million from what I'm hearing, and obviously Bellerin depending on where he goes. But like we haven't spent in the past. We've sold big names. We've sold Gnabry, but Oxlade-Chamberlain, but the money still hasn't been invested wisely. So what is the sort of expectation at this point that we are going to go buy some big names? I just don't see it happening personally, but.
Exactly. So this is why when I do the Tuesday transfer torture, it's to get in a room, give everyone a hug and look at the names we're being, associated with, and actually have a real conversation about, what is the reality versus, the truth versus the myth. And I just think right now we're being associated with players that are just too expensive. And I agree. Where is he right here? I was going to put it up. Guna Russ said he's looking forward to 3 p.m. kickoffs again. I mean, there's something to be said about... Oh, is that your dad?
That is my dad, yeah. Guna Russ.
Good evening, Dad. How are you? She's very, very proud. Lucy's smashing it here on the Highbury squad, isn't she, squad? He's doing a fantastic job. Luce, what else did you want to let everyone know before we depart? I mean, the Euros are on right now. We're all anxious about the new season starting. Mikel Arteta gets to start with a clean slate again. What is your take on, you just talked about where you see us maybe going next season. How are you feeling overall about the Arsenal right now?
I just want something to get excited about, something realistic to get excited about more than anything. They've just dropped season ticket prices by 9%. Obviously, we're not in Europe anymore, so they've made a point of freezing the season ticket prices, so at least they can see the dismay and the decline that is happening at the club. But whether they're going to act on it, that is what I'm waiting to see, and to see if Arteta said to realistically wait until after the Euros are done, which I feel is a fair statement to make. You want to give these players the opportunity to do well in this competition and see where we can go and see what decisions are made after the Euros have done. Definitely. And dusted. But it's interesting to see some of the players that are coming out of their shell during this competition too. So it'll be, it's an interesting one. Definitely.
And Sean, we're not getting caught up in the rumours. We're talking about how the rumours are rumours and that we shouldn't get caught up in them.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're talking about. We're not getting caught up in them. We're saying it's a long season, a long transfer season ahead here. The new season doesn't start for another, 2 months? We've got a long, long way to go. And the transfer window doesn't shut for how long? I mean, the beginning of September, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yes. And she does know her stuff. Lucy is epic. And you know what, Lucy, next time you're on, and we'll have you on in the next couple of weeks again, is I want to get your take on, because you're a huge proponent of the Hale End boys. And, we're going to, once things start kind of, we'll see where things go and where the transfer market takes us and the Euros and all that jazz. Are we better off giving Aziz a chance versus going and buying X? Are we better off giving Balogun a chance versus going and buying Y? You can actually tell me right now in a minute, if you want, how you feel about that, by the way.
I mean, it'll just be interesting more to see how things pan out. Because you can call me out in a few weeks if we sign some big names, and if they spend some money, I'll hold my hands up and say, okay, fine. Like I want to be proved wrong. This is the thing. I want us to spend money. It's just I don't see it happening. Aziz, I only saw him play once. I don't remember what game? Maybe Newcastle, but he was amazing. Like for the time he got on the pitch, I felt like he really made an impact. Balogun, he hasn't had a fair shot whatsoever, in my opinion. Like we're dropping players, younger players who are performing well and haven't really had a fair shot at the first team. But what I don't want to happen is another Saliba situation where we go out and buy someone who just sits on the bench, or someone who just gets loaned out, and we don't see what could have happened. But
you know what worries me, Lucy, about that a little bit is, are Balogun and Aziz going to go out on loan next season? That's what worries me. And yes,
that's what I can see happening. To be honest with you, that seems like that's the more likely option.
And I get it. Everyone's saying we can't rely on the kids. Well, Saka and Issa saved us.
We have been relying on them. And I said we shouldn't be putting all this pressure on these young boys, Saka, but they've carried us realistically. We would have been in a relegation battle if we hadn't have seen them turn things around. So
Yep. And Sean, thank you. Another Women's Day. I enjoy the female panels and I want them all highlighted for their great analysis. Thank you, Sean. That means a lot. And we really appreciate that. And Lucy's definitely going to be back for more on the HS squad. She's going to be part of our Fanbassador series next season too. Smashing it as always. Lucy, let everyone know where they can find you.
So I'm on Twitter at LuceTBH, or on Instagram, the same username everywhere. So yeah, I'm about to give my voice and opinions where they're not always wanted, but here we are. Well,
they're definitely wanted here, and really appreciate you coming on, doing a great job. And we're excited that we're going to be seeing a lot more of you next season as well. So thanks very much for joining, Lucy. And don't forget, you guys, go visit our friends at footballprizes.co.uk for the latest auctions. We'll have a new one up for you tomorrow. I'll be giving a free ticket away on Thursday. Super Kevin Campbell returns tomorrow, and we have him on Thursday and Friday. We'll be coming on live right after the England-Scotland game, and we'll be mixing it up with a little bit of Kevin Says as well. In the meantime, Lucy, thank you so much, and thank you, Guna Russ, for joining. She's a rock star, but you already knew that. And until tomorrow, guys, take care and God bless. Technical